Thank you so much to all 121 of you who have subscribed. Your support, it means everything. Now let us start the story. There are things you learn in training, and then there are things you learn in the dark. In my 14 years as a 911 operator, I've learned most of the job is just muscle memory and protocol. You learn to compartmentalize. You have to. You become a collector of last words, of terrified screams, of the breathless moments right before a life changes or ends. Most calls, no matter how traumatic, eventually just fade into the background noise of a long career. They become case numbers, files in a cabinet, stories you tell the new recruits to get them ready. But not all of them. Some calls don't fade. They don't become files. They become a part of you. They're the exception to every rule, the crack in the professional armor you've spent years building. They're the calls that make you question not just the situation, but the nature of reality itself. I've taken calls from people on the worst days of their lives. I've listened to things no one should ever have to hear. I've felt that helplessness of being just a voice on a wire, 1,000 miles from the actual danger. But only one call ever made me feel like the danger was right there in the room with me. Only one call ever made me afraid of the silence, after the line goes dead. This is that call. And it's why I sometimes still flinch when the phone rings. 911, what is your emergency? Someone's in the house. Okay, I'm here to help you. Can you tell me your name? Who is in the house? Are you still there? The call came in at 2:17 a.m. The graveyard shift. It's a time when the world outside the emergency communications center is supposed to be asleep, but we know better. Calls that come in during these hours are rarely trivial. They're born from the deepest parts of the night, from alcohol-fueled rage, from medical emergencies that couldn't wait for morning, or from a fear that's been festering in the darkness. That night was quiet, though. Unusually so. The massive room, normally a symphony of ringing phones and urgent voices, was hushed. The only sounds were the low hum of servers, the soft clatter of my colleague's keyboard 2 stations down, and the rhythmic beep of the system, a digital heartbeat reminding us we were on duty. I was on my second cup of stale coffee, my eyes tracing the grid of city streets on one of the maps. It's a state of relaxed vigilance every operator knows well. Then a new call appeared on my screen. Line 6 blinking, a silent request for attention. No jarring ring, just a small, insistent pulse of light. I clicked it, my headset already on, and spoke the words I've said 100,000 times. 911, what is your emergency? At first, nothing but a wash of static, so faint it was like listening to the inside of a seashell. I was about to repeat myself, figuring it was a pocket dial, when I heard it. A sound so small it barely registered. A whisper. Someone's in the house. It was a child's voice. I couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl. The whisper was just too thin, too fragile. It was the kind of whisper that's afraid of its own sound. My training kicked in instantly, all the protocols firing off in my head. But underneath the training, a cold knot of dread was already forming in my stomach. A child, whispering. That is never a good sign. Okay, I'm here to help you. Can you tell me your name? Who is in the house? My voice was calm, a carefully constructed wall of professionalism. Inside, my heart had already started beating faster. You learn to control your voice, to project an aura of control, even when you feel anything but. The line went silent. Not the empty static from before, but a heavy, deliberate silence. It felt like the child was holding their breath, listening for something. My screen was already populating with data from the cell phone call. Our CAD, the computer automated dispatch system, was already trying to ping towers to triangulate a position. But cell locations can be tricky, especially in the more rural parts of our county. The first ping gave us a frustratingly large circle that covered a dense patch of woods and a new housing development. "Are you still there?" I asked, my voice a little softer this time. I didn't want to startle them. In these situations, you handle the caller like a frightened animal. Any sudden move, any loud noise, and they could hang up. And a disconnected line is an operator's worst nightmare. Another beat of silence, then the whisper returned, even fainter. "I don't know." You don't know your name, or you don't know who's in the house? Who's in the house? The voice whispered. I'm hiding. Okay, you're doing a great job. Can you tell me where you're hiding? I needed information. An address was everything. Without it, the circle on my map was just a guess. The officers I'd send would be searching blind. In my closet. Good. That's a good safe place. Is the door closed? Yes. Can you hear anything right now? I was listening hard, trying to pick up any background noise. A dog, a TV, a passing car. Anything. But there was nothing. Just the child's quiet breathing and that low static. He's walking, the child whispered. The words sent a fresh spike of adrenaline through me. Okay, where is he walking? Can you tell? Downstairs. Are your parents home? I asked, my fingers flying across the keyboard, typing notes into the call log. Caller is a child. Whispering. Hiding in a closet. Unsub in house. Currently downstairs. Every small piece of information is crucial. I don't have any. The answer was so simple, so matter-of-fact, it caught me off guard. Not, they're not here, or they're asleep. Just, I don't have any. The cold knot in my stomach tightened. Was this a foster kid? Living with grandparents? Or was it something else? Is there another grown-up in the house with you? No, it's just me. My eyes darted to the map. The location was refining itself, the circle shrinking, but it was still too big, covering at least a dozen homes in that new subdivision. One of those sprawling cookie-cutter developments where every house looks the same. A terrible place for an emergency without a solid address. Okay, listen to me, I said, leaning closer to the mic, as if I could somehow offer more protection. You are being very brave. I need you to stay on the phone with me, but don't talk if it's not safe. Can you tap on the phone for me? Tap once for yes, twice for no. Can you do that? A pause. Then, a single, soft thump against the phone's microphone. Yes, this is a standard procedure when callers can't speak. It felt like communicating with a ghost, just a series of taps from a dark, unknown room. Good. Perfect. Are you in your bedroom closet? Thump. Yes. Is the person in the house a man? Thump. Yes. Did you see him? A longer pause this time. I held my breath. The silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10. My own protocol says after too much silence, I have to reinitiate contact. Just as I was about to speak, I heard it. Thump. Thump. No. My brow furrowed. How did they know it was a man if they hadn't seen him? Okay, I continued, keeping my voice even. Can you hear him now? Thump. Yes. Is he still downstairs? Thump. Thump. No. A chill traced its way down my spine. Is he on the same floor as you? The silence that followed was different, heavier. The faint static seemed to fade away, replaced by a deep and absolute quiet. I felt a primal kind of dread, the kind that has nothing to do with training. It was the fear of the unknown, the feeling of standing at the edge of a dark abyss. Is he outside your door? I whispered, my own voice dropping without me realizing it. I waited for the tap, 1 for yes, 2 for no. It didn't come. There was nothing. Just that deafening, suffocating silence. The absence of sound on a 911 call is a language all its own. There's the silence of a caller who's lost consciousness, a fading, gentle quiet. There's the angry silence of someone hanging up on you, cut by a sharp click. And then there's the silence of pure terror. A tense, breathless void where you can almost hear the fear. This was that kind of silence. It was active. It was listening. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the quiet of the call center. My training screamed at me to keep talking, to follow the silent call procedure, to not lose the connection. Are you still with me? I said, my voice barely a whisper. If you can't tap, just listen. I need you to know that help is coming. We are trying to find you. I was lying. Well, half lying. I hadn't dispatched yet. Without a confirmed address, sending officers into that huge search radius would be a chaotic mess. They'd be going door to door, waking up innocent families, wasting precious time. I needed something more. A house number, a street name, anything. My supervisor, Dave, must have sensed something was wrong. He'd been doing this job for 30 years and had the weary eyes to prove it. He walked over and stood behind me, looking over my shoulder at my screen. He didn't say a word, just read the notes I'd been furiously typing. His presence was both a comfort and an added pressure. "Can you hear me?" I tried again. "Just stay hidden. Don't make a sound." That's when I heard a new noise on the line. It was faint, a soft, rhythmic creaking. The sound of a floorboard groaning under weight. One step, then another. Someone was walking slowly down a hallway. The sound was getting closer to the phone's microphone, closer to the child. My blood ran cold. He was on the same floor, near the bedroom. My hand hovered over the dispatch button. I could send a car to the general area, have them patrol with their lights off, see if they spot anything. It was a long shot, but better than nothing. "He's coming," the child whispered, the voice tight with panic. "Stay quiet," I urged. "Don't move. Don't even breathe." The creaking stopped. The silence that followed was even more terrifying. A predatory silence, the sound of a hunter that has stopped to listen for its prey. I could picture it perfectly. A child, balled up in a dark closet, hands clamped over their mouth, trying to stifle the sound of their own frantic heartbeat. And just outside the door, a figure, standing perfectly still, just listening. The minutes felt like an eternity. In emergency response, every second is a lifetime. I was painfully aware of the clock on my screen. 2:24 a.m. 7 minutes had passed since the call began. It felt like 7 hours. My body was coiled like a spring. It's a thing called vicarious trauma, an occupational hazard where you start to feel the caller's horror and helplessness as if it's your own. "I think he knows," the child whispered, the words trembling. "Shh," I commanded more forcefully than I meant to. "Don't speak." Then came another sound, a scratching, a light, dry, scraping noise. It was the sound of a fingernail being dragged slowly across a wooden door. My stomach churned. This wasn't an ordinary home invasion. Burglars are either loud and fast or quiet and stealthy. They want to get in, get what they want, and get out. They don't play games. They don't terrorize people. This was something else. This was sadistic. The scratching went on and on, a slow, methodical torment. It was a sound designed to unravel your nerves, to turn fear into pure, mind-shattering panic. I could hear the child's breathing now, no longer quiet, but ragged, hitching gasps. They were losing it. "Listen to my voice," I said, trying a new tactic. "Focus on me. I'm going to count backwards from 10. I want you to count with me, in your head. Don't make a sound, just count. 10, 9, 8. I kept my voice low and steady, a mantra against the horrifying scratching. I had to keep the child grounded. I had to keep them from screaming. A scream would give them away. A scream could be the last sound they ever made. 7, 6, 5. The scratching stopped, abruptly. The sudden silence was a physical shock. 4, 3. I paused, listening. The line was dead quiet. No breathing, no static, no creaking. 2. My own voice faltered. The quiet was absolute. The sound of a vacuum. The sound of an open grave. 1. I waited. Nothing. "Are you there?" I whispered into the void. Silence. "Can you tap the phone for me?" Silence. "Please, just make a sound. Anything." The silence held like a solid wall. My mind raced through horrible possibilities. Had the man found them? The lack of any sound, not even a struggle, was what terrified me the most. It was as if the child, and the phone, had just ceased to exist. "Okay," I said, talking more to myself and to Dave, who was now leaning in, his face grim. "I'm initiating a disconnect protocol trace. Even if a caller hangs up for a brief window, we can sometimes hold the connection to get a better location fix. But this didn't feel like a hang-up. It felt like the line had been surgically cut. I stared at the audio waveform on my screen. For the whole call, it was a frantic, spiky line. Now, it was perfectly, unnaturally flat. A dead line. I kept the line open, listening to nothing, hoping for a sign of life. My job was to stay on the line until officers arrived and confirmed the situation. But I had no scene. I had a ghost on a map. The silence stretched on. 10 seconds. 20. 30. It was the longest 30 seconds of my life. I was about to tell Dave the line was lost, that we had to just guess and send a car, when I heard it. It wasn't a whisper. It wasn't a creak or a scratch. It was a voice that did not belong to a child. It was deep, resonant, and impossibly close to the phone's microphone, as if the person speaking had their lips inches from my ear. The quality was crystal clear, none of the static that had plagued the child's whispers, and in a calm, conversational, utterly unhurried tone, the voice said, my full name. Not just my first name, which callers sometimes see. Not my last name from my badge. My first, middle, and last name. The voice spoke my full legal name. And then, with a sharp, final click, the line disconnected. For a moment, I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I just sat there, frozen, the headset still pressed to my ears. The 3 words echoed in the silence of my own mind. The voice hadn't been angry or threatening. It was worse. It was calm. It was familiar, like an old acquaintance. The call disconnected message flashed on my screen in stark red letters. The call was over. But for me, it felt like something had just begun. What was that? Dave's voice cut through my shock. He'd heard it too, through my headset patched to his supervisor console. His face, normally a mask of seasoned indifference, was pale. In 30 years, he'd heard gunshots, dying breaths, and confessions. But the color draining from his face told me he had never heard anything like that. It knew my name, Dave, I stammered, my voice trembling. My full name. He put a hand on my shoulder. Okay, just breathe. We're sending everyone. He was already at his own terminal, overriding the need for a precise address. He initiated a high-priority, multi-unit response to the entire subdivision, an unknown trouble call, the highest alert. Every available officer was rerouted. He broadcasted the details I had. Child in distress, possible intruder, call disconnected. He left out the part about the voice. That wasn't official information. That was something else. That was for us. I watched, numb, as patrol car icons moved across the map, converging on that one dark patch of the county. I felt a profound sense of futility. They were going in blind, searching for a whisper in a sea of identical houses. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't have typed if I'd wanted to. A cold sweat had broken out on my forehead. This was more than the usual adrenaline crash. This was a deep, bone-chilling fear. It was personal. The barrier between my job and my life had been shattered. The horrors were supposed to stay on the other end of the line. They weren't supposed to know my name. The next hour was an agony of waiting. The radio was mostly quiet, just the calm voices of officers checking in. Unit 7, on scene, beginning canvass of Oakwood Lane. Unit 12, checking the perimeter of the new construction on Maple Court. They were thorough. They went door to door, using the excuse of a reported gas leak to avoid a panic. They checked every house in the triangulated zone. Most were occupied by sleeping families, confused by the late-night visit. Several were empty, part of the new construction, still for sale. I listened to every radio transmission, my heart leaping at every crackle of static, praying they would find a child hiding in a closet, praying they'd find any sign of what happened. Finally, the lead officer's voice came over the radio. "Dispatch, this is Sergeant Miller." "Go ahead, Sergeant," Dave responded. "We've completed a full canvass of the designated area. Multiple residences checked, all occupants accounted for and safe. We've also cleared the vacant properties. There's no sign of forced entry, no disturbances. We've found absolutely nothing." My stomach dropped. "What about the cell signal, Miller?" Dave asked. Can we narrow it down to a specific property? Negative. Dispatch. The final ping was broad. It covers the 4 houses at the end of the cul-de-sac on Willow Creek Drive. 2 are occupied. Families are fine. 2 are vacant. We've walked through them both, top to bottom. They're empty. Dust on the floors, plastic on the appliances. No one's been inside for weeks. There are no footprints in the snow outside one of them. No sign of anything. No child. No intruder. Nothing. It was as if the call had beamed in from another dimension. Dave thanked the sergeant, and the units were slowly called back. The alert was canceled. For everyone else, the night went back to normal. But I couldn't let it go. "Dave, the name," I said, my voice hoarse. How could it know my name? He sighed, running a hand over his tired face. Could be a hack, a sophisticated prank, a very, very sick one. But we both knew that didn't feel right. The voice, it wasn't a prankster. There was no malice in it. It was a simple statement of fact. A voice that held a chilling, ancient authority. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I became hyper-vigilant, classic PTSD, which a lot of us in this line of work get. Every creak in my house at night sent my heart racing. I checked the locks 3, 4, 5 times before bed. I had nightmares filled with long, dark hallways and the sound of a fingernail scraping against wood. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, that deep voice echoing in my ears. I became withdrawn at work. Every time I took a call and the line was quiet, a jolt of panic shot through me. The fear of that absolute predatory silence was overwhelming. My performance suffered. I tried to investigate. I pulled the call recording and listened to it again and again. I ran diagnostics on the call data. The origin was a burner phone, a prepaid cell with no registered user, activated only hours before the call was made. After my call, it was never used again. The location data was a dead end. The department's IT team did a security sweep. They found no evidence of a data breach. My employee file was secure. There was no logical explanation. The case was logged as unfounded, a call where officers respond, but find no evidence of an emergency. To the system, it was just another false alarm, a ghost in the machine. I've handled thousands of calls since that night. I've helped deliver babies over the phone. I've talked people down from bridges. I've listened to the final moments of car accidents and the cold confessions of killers. I even got the official PTSD diagnosis, just a clinical name for the collection of scars you get from a career spent listening to the worst of humanity. I've had therapy. I've learned coping mechanisms. I've built my professional wall back up, brick by brick. But that call is the one brick that will never fit. It's the one I can't file away. It's different. It wasn't about the tangible horror of violence or death. It was about the intangible horror of the unknown. The brutal crimes, the tragic accidents. They're terrible, but they make sense in our world. They have rules. They have explanations. This had none. What happened to the child? Was there ever a child at all? Was it a prank of impossible sophistication? Or was it something else? Something that defies explanation, that exists in the shadows of our understanding. An entity that can manifest a whisper in a dark room and speak your name from an untraceable void. That's what haunts me. Not the man in the house, but the voice on the line. The calm, clear voice that knew me. It broke the fundamental rule of my job and my world, that the monsters are on the other end of the phone, far away. That call taught me that sometimes they can reach right through the receiver and whisper your name. It taught me that some silences aren't empty. They're waiting. And even now, all these years later, in the dead of night when the house is quiet, I sometimes feel that silence waiting for me. And I am terrified of what it might say next. If this story stuck with you, and you want to hear more about the calls that you never forget, consider liking and subscribing. And in the comments below, I'd be interested to know, what's the most unexplainable thing that's ever happened to you? Thanks for listening.